All right, so this is the webinar training user guide for the Disaster Responder Management tool, the free online tool developed by the Philadelphia Department of Public Health for volunteer coordinators across the country and whoever would like to use it. I'm on the phone. My name is Neil Batra. I'm the Medical Reserve Corps Coordinator for the Philadelphia Department of Public Health, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Katie Dangerfield and Katie Wasser, also of the Philadelphia Department of Public Health. Would you like to say hello?
Hi, this is Katie Dangerfield. Hi, this is Katie Wasser.
Great. And we know today that you want to learn about the various functions of the tool, how to use it, and just remember that if this is an emergency and you're viewing this, you can also speed up this video on YouTube by clicking the 1.5 or 2.0 times faster to speed up our voices. We're going to be showing you live screen today as I go through the tool, and I hope it doesn't crash, but it should be just fine. So let's get started. You probably received a link to the tool, and that's probably how you first heard about this. So just confirming you all can see my screen, it says it's a login to a Google account here. Yes?
Yes, yes.
All right. So let's say you open up your web browser, and let's say you're using Google Chrome, because that's the preferred one. Mozilla Firefox will also work, although we don't recommend using Internet Explorer. So let's say you open up a new tab, and you paste in this bit.ly link that you got. It says Disaster Responder Management Tool, and that may be the link you got. It may be something different, but either way, you click Enter, and it's going to take you to the spreadsheet. And so the Disaster Responder Management tool consists of really two main parts. So this is what you're looking at is a Google spreadsheet. Now, if you're not familiar with them, Google spreadsheets allow multiple users to edit and view a spreadsheet that is very similar to Excel spreadsheets, if you're familiar with the Microsoft Excel. It just comes with some additional functions, and you can have many people working in them at the same time, all from different computers through the internet. So here, this is what you have, and you'll notice that you were not able to edit in it. So say I'm pressing keys right now, and it is not letting me type in this. And you can see at the bottom here, there's a bunch of different tabs of the spreadsheet, or what we call sheets within the spreadsheet. And these are also, likewise, they're uneditable and they're blank. So this is the empty version of the tool. But the first thing you're going to want to do is save a copy. So we're going to go File, and hold on. Oh, I haven't signed in yet. So first thing you're going to do is sign in to your unit's Google account. And that's different than a Gmail address. You don't have to have a Gmail address to have a Google account. So for example, mrc@phila.gov can have a Google account. And what you want to do is go to drive.google.com, right? And then log in. So in this case, I'm using exampleunit1@gmail.com is my username. My password. I'm not going to save the password. I'm going to ignore this. And now I'm in Google Drive, which is essentially a shared folder drive for that account. And keep in mind, you can have this drive without having a Gmail email address.
Hey,
so,
Neil?
Yeah,
it's Katie. We have a question about the sharing of the Google Drive. So when people are going to your video here to learn, are they getting access to that example account, or can they access it from their own Gmail account, or do you recommend that they make a new Google account for their MRC unit?
So you're not getting access to this Google account. It's just one I built to show in the video. What you want is to have a Google account for your unit or your organization that you would open this file within that account. So the first thing you do is log into the account, and now you can open a tab, paste the tool.
Great. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Katie. And now that it's sort of hosted within your account, you can see I'm logged in. I can make a copy here, just like as if I was saving as in Microsoft Word or Excel. So here I'm going to name it. I'm going to name it Template Disaster Responder Management Tool. Click OK, and this means that I will now be able to edit it because it's my own. It's not just something that has been passed along to me. So we'll wait for this to load.
So Neil, now that you made this your own and anyone using this video can make it their own, is that how they protect it from, other people fiddling with it?
That's correct. Good question. So once you save it as, and it's going to appear now in my Google Drive. So here it is. This is the important document here, Template Disaster Responder Management Tool. It is mine, and it's only shared with who I want to share it with. And the sharing happens with this little blue button in the upper right here. If I want to share it, right now it says private to only me. But I can click on that and adjust the settings and share it with, let's say, other unit coordinators in my state or whoever I'm working with that I want to see. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Thank you, Neil.
All right, great. So I'm just going to move this into my emergency response folder in my drive. And now let's take a look at it in more detail. So like I said, this is the empty version. Right off the bat, we have just explaining who made the tool. There's a link to this video. The link isn't there right now because we're making the video right now, but it will be there. There's a stay in touch box, which has a link to a survey that you can fill out and just let us know some questions about yourself. And so we can provide you with the most recent updates, and you can provide us with feedback on the tool. And a practice box, and this is where there's a link to a spreadsheet that has fake data in it. So this is fake data about fake volunteers or responders, and it's a tool you can practice in, and that's similar. So let's go to that one actually, because this one, remember, is all empty. It's not going to be as good to demonstrate in. So I'm going to open this link. Okay, so now I have, this is the example disaster responder management tool versus the template one we were in before. So now, again, I have to save a copy as, because this is right now uneditable. So this is now my example. And I'm saving this all into my Google Drive. And this is what we're going to spend the webinar in, demonstrating the different functions to you. All right, so here's our copy of the DRMT that has the fake data in it that we can practice in. So I'm going to get rid of this one, which is not mine, but this one is now mine. And if we go back to the drive, here we have my example. So we're in my folder, in my drive. I have the template one that's empty, and I have the example one. So let's work in the example one, and I'm going to get rid of the template one for the moment. So let's continue reading in this instructions tab, because this is the one that has all the important information. It says that it's best to set up the tool before the disaster strikes, but in a hurry, you can get this ready in about 15 minutes. At the bottom of the instructions tab, which is the tab we're in, are advanced user instructions, so explaining all the formulas that are behind the scenes, and contact information for us. This is a free tool, and we encourage you to use it, edit it, modify it, and let us know what you are able to do with it. So this explains the basic functions of the tool. The first basic function is that you can send a customizable online questionnaire to your responders. And this is in the form of a Google form, and that's what they call survey. It's similar to SurveyMonkey or other sort of online questionnaires that you can email to your responders and collect their information, such as when they are available, their up-to-date or most recent contact information, their most recent qualifications, and other disaster-specific information, such as vaccinations or particular skills you want to know about. We'll get to that more in a moment. It also allows you, this spreadsheet also allows you to map the locations of the available responders to help assist you in your decision-making as a response organizer. So maybe you want to know where all the volunteers are in the state that are available and where to place particular rally points or reception centers or things like that. Another one is the use of this spreadsheet and the various tabs to record the assignments that you give particular responders. So those assignments could be particular deployment dates, they could be meeting points like a rally point, they could be assignment to a particular vehicle to be transported in, to a particular work site, or shifts, or jobs, or lodging to stay at. The fourth basic role is to generate rosters and be able to access lists of responders that have been assigned to show up at a particular point at a certain time, who are in a particular vehicle, who are supposed to work a particular shift, or et cetera. The last function is to automatically create and send a personalized deployment summary in the form of a PDF to each of your responders, and that's something this tool does. And that PDF lists all of the assignments that you've made for that responder in the PDF that is automatically emailed to them. And the last function is the use of the Google Drive in general to sort of share response documents between many users. And that comes if you decide to create a shared Google Drive between the response organizers. And let's just take a moment and talk about the purpose of the tool. So here you can see it was designed for a large response involving the facilitated transportation of responders from multiple locations into an affected area. To that purpose, we use these two terms, rally point and reception center. And what we mean by that is the rally point is the place where responders travel within a short distance of their home to board transportation that will take them a longer distance into the disaster area. So people would go to a rally point, perhaps get on a bus and travel across the state. In Pennsylvania, where we live, the common example is boarding a bus near Philadelphia to travel 6+ hours to Pittsburgh. Then in Pittsburgh, they would arrive at a reception center where they would perhaps be sorted to work in one jurisdiction, to perhaps be living at a certain lodging site, working at a work site, perhaps assigned to certain shifts. It sort of depends on what's happening in your particular setup. So these are the two terms we'll be using throughout the webinar that you have to understand, rally point and reception center. All right, so here we are scrolling down, and you'll see that this page shows step-by-step instructions, everything we're going to cover in this webinar. And the common format is a bolded blue title, such as create the online questionnaire to send to responders. There will be step-by-step in each row with an image that sort of shows you what to click, where to click, and takes you step-by-step through the different processes. So, and this goes all the way down, and there's lots and lots of different images and subjects. So if you're lost and you prefer to read things as opposed to viewing a video, you can always look at the instructions tab. So the first thing we need to do here in instructions is save the copy of your spreadsheet. And we've already done that. So this is just a reminder for us. Then we want to create the online questionnaire that will be sent to responders. And again, this is a Google form. Now, we've made a template form for you. You're welcome to make your own. But you can click this link here. So let's click the link, and it will open a new tab that contains a Google form. Anybody who's familiar with SurveyMonkey or other online survey tools may recognize the basic format here. So we have pages of the survey. We have a title. In this case, it says, do not edit. Please make a copy in your Google Drive. Oh, let's do that. That sounds like a good reminder. So we're going to make a copy. And again, save that into our Google Drive. All right. Let's make sure that's in the right place. Go back to our drive. All right. So here we have an image. We could put an image or two. Here in this first page, they're going to see respond to disaster X as a volunteer, sort of a basic description of the emergency, the needs, the risks, perhaps the work environment, expectations of a responder, and et cetera. Now, you're free to change this as much as you wish, but you should know a couple of things. There's a button here that says View Live Form. You click this, you see the actual form that a person would see when they are asked to fill out the survey. So let's click. So this is sort of the user interface here. So this shows exactly what we saw before. The first question is asking if they're already registered as an emergency volunteer in our system, and the answers are yes, no, or I'm not sure. But let's go back to the editing version. This is the version you can actually change. There's a code of conduct that we've included in the second page, and so by clicking next, and they agree to follow this code of conduct. Again, you can replace that with your own. Then we get into basic volunteer information, so first name, last name, volunteer type, and this looks like we've entered Medical Reserve Corps unit, County Animal Response Team, sort of behavioral health volunteers. You could have this and add other options as you wish. Specific units, so these are names of particular Medical Reserve Corps units, and again, you can design this as you wish. As we continue, we have email address, a confirming email, cell phone number, I think very useful. Cell carrier can also be very useful if we want to send texts to the person. Age, we decided not to collect actual birth date, so because it's a sort of a sensitive information, so we decided to collect over 18 or under 18. You can decide to do whatever your organization wishes. Gender is here. Address, again, I recommend at least collect zip code, and at most collect street address, city, state, and zip code. That's for the mapping later on. Again, if you're uncomfortable asking volunteers to put in their address, you can have them put in just their zip code. Emergency contact, any special needs they may have related to the deployment. The next page of the survey, we ask them their current medical license or certifications, and we ask them to pick the one that's most relevant to this emergency. And we have a list here that they choose from, and you can edit that list as you wish. Then we have a series of questions that are specific skills, and you can delete these questions or add other ones. We have load lifting, call center experience, have you had a flu vaccine, do you have experience with crowd management, and have you been trained in point of dispensing leadership? And then do you speak any languages other than English? If the person selected a medical license, we ask them their specialty. So if they're a nurse, are they ICU nurse, a oncology nurse, are they an ER nurse? You know, that really helps to determine who you assign to do what. And then we ask about deployment availability. And so we ask, how many days are you willing to deploy, inclusive of transportation time? And you can add numbers to this list. And then we ask the first date they're available to leave and the date they have to be back by. And so this range of dates could be larger than perhaps the number of days they're willing to deploy. If I'm only available for 5 days, but I'm over the whole course of a month, I could be available. That records that information well. And then another question, perhaps, would you prefer to drive your personal vehicle as opposed to riding on a bus? And so the user is going to go through these questions in the survey, and the nice thing about Google is that the results that the person inputs are sent right into one of the spreadsheets. So let's say that we need to connect this form to our spreadsheet here, okay? So the way we do that, right now we have 0 responses, and it is accepting responses. I can view a summary of the responses. It opens a tab which does a sort of graphical representation of every single question. So you get a little pie chart with percentages of people who answered every single question. But we don't need to see that right now. Other things to do here is choose the response destination. So this is important. This is where we're going to connect this form to this spreadsheet, and you'll see that a new sheet is going to appear in here with our answers. So choose response destination. We could put it in a new spreadsheet. We do not want to do that. We want to put a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet, and then we're going to click choose. And in choose, we're going to put it in the example disaster responder management tool. I don't know why there are 2 here. Oh, one is the view only and one is the edit. So let's see if this is correct. Yes, so what happened is we just got a new tab here that says form responses 15. That just is because I've done this many times before, 15 times. And we have now all of the questions from the survey and all of the responses, which are 0 responses. Now, what I'd like to do is, because we're demonstrating this, is take in from my own computer these fake responses and put them in here so we can play with them. So there we go. We've got about 100 people now that have filled out the survey with names like Hanna-Barbera and, Bumblebee and, Jim Bob. So lots of fake data here.
Hey, Neil?
Yeah.
We have a question here. So as the former volunteer coordinator, and Katie Wasser is always doing staff call downs, we're thinking about, you do an initial call down with one survey, and then someone comes in and says, we need to ask extra questions, or we don't have enough people yet, and we need to send it out again. How does that affect this and, your transport or, your moving of the data over?
Right. So the question is about when you create one survey or questionnaire, and then in the midst of collecting responses, you realize you have to change the survey. And the answer is that you can go into here and change the survey midway. You can add extra answers. You can add extra questions. If you add extra answers, they become available and they will appear in the answers here. If you add extra questions, the extra questions will also appear at the very far right side of the spreadsheet. So they may not appear in the order here that you thought it would, but they will appear at the very end. And of course, they will only show the answers for people that have answered them. So that may be pretty far down the list, depending on when you changed your survey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. That's really good to know, because we can see, who got the second version of the survey by looking at that new column. And, if we need to go back to other volunteers and find out their answer to a different question, we can do that by seeing that, they didn't get it originally. Thanks.
Great. So you may have noticed I did a little bit of activity here. Please don't worry about that. Essentially, there was a sheet in here called form responses that had data in here, but I wanted to show the process of having a new questionnaire be dumped into the spreadsheet and then having the spreadsheet. So don't worry about the fact that I deleted a tab in here. We'll get to that in a moment. All right. So now we have our raw data. This is this white sheet. We're really not going to do much with this sheet. Just know that it's here, and as users complete the questionnaire, their answers will appear in this sheet in real time. So you may see as people fill out the answers, boom, 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 boom. Names, people will, the data will start appearing. All right. The next thing we need to do here is move on to the next sheet. So as we go through these sheets, we have the raw responses, we have the instructions tab, we've made a copy, and we've seen our summary of responses. And now we want to go to the enter data sheet. And this sheet is green, it's right here. And this is sort of, this is a really important sheet. Don't be turned off by the pink here. So what we've got is a sheet that I'm going to zoom out so you can sort of see the whole structure here. You've got a row here that says the title, pink, which are instructions and examples, and the green, which is data that you're going to input as a response organizer. And this is a sheet that the information you put in these columns, these green columns, is going to drive the functions in the rest of these sheets here. So for example, a type of data you might put in is a list of the reception centers for this disaster, okay? So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looking in column K here, different reception centers in the disaster-affected area. Similarly, I could have a list of the rally points in the sending unit jurisdictions. So here we've got personal vehicle as one, and then we have 4 other ones that are locations where volunteers will meet. And then next to them, I have the addresses and contact information for that particular rally point or reception center. You can see how that's going to drive some functions in the rest of the tool. Similarly, a lot of these columns drive drop-down menus. So I'll just show you an example here. I'm going to go over to the Make Assignments tab, which is right next to Enter Data. And you'll see that there's many cells where a drop-down menu appears. Well, that drop-down menu is being fed by a list which is one of these columns. So the very first one we want to fill out here is this one in column B. Let me zoom in here. And this is the questionnaire response data source. So basically, it's asking you to input the sheet name that contains all the raw data. So an example would be form responses 2. In our case, it's this one. It's form responses 15. So let's go into this green cell, which is where we actually type in the answer, and let's put in exactly form responses 15. So now the tool knows to look in the cell that has that name, or in the sheet that has that name for all the raw data. All right, great. The next one is columns that contain specific data. So this is a list of, in the gray here, you'll see certain descriptions. So responder first name, responder last name, responder unit. And it's asking you in the green next to it to put the letter of a column that contains that particular data. And this is in the raw data sheet. So, for example, responder first name in our raw data looks like it falls in column C. So now we can tell the tool if to look for, when it wants first name, to look in column C. Similarly, zip code or address, where's that going to be? Well, let's see here. It looks like if we scroll over, address is appearing in column O. And so we can make sure that this says column O. Now, it's important to realize why we're doing this, because when you design your survey, you may switch questions around. You may not include certain questions that are in the template. Yet the spreadsheet needs to know where this information is, and it may be in a different column. And so it's important to know for your particular sheet here, which column is that data in. And you can see other things in here: responder cell phone number, responder date available, the beginning date, responder date available, the end date. For mapping people, there's a whole feature in here which allows you to map where people are located, and each of those little dots that appear on a map must have a name. So maybe you might want to have that be the last name of the person or their email address. Anyway, you pick a column and it goes in here. Similarly, you might want to categorize those individuals who are mapped. Maybe you want to make them color-coded by their qualification or by their unit name. And so you pick a column with one of those attributes that you can categorize the people in the map. The primary column for the responder's skills. Are they physician, nurse, non-medical? All that information is going to be in one column. So, for example, in ours, it's going to be in column R, and we can see here nurse, nurse practitioner, physician, EMT basic, no or non-medical. So, and responder email address and the number of days the responder is available for, so the deployment duration. So those are important. The other things to put in the entered data sheets, this is unit roster. So there's a function of the tool that allows you to verify each name of the person who completed the questionnaire. So let's say you sent this out to your unit and you expect that most of the people who complete the questionnaire will be from your unit, but who knows who may have gotten a hold of the survey. Somebody may have forwarded an email, and you may have people fill out this survey that are not actually verified members of your organization. Well, if you do have a roster of the people who are members of your organization, you can put them here. And so there's a column for first name, last name, the unit, so your particular agency name, and the person's zip code. And so you can see all this data we have here. This column goes down for quite a while. I've got many volunteers in my unit. And let's say there's multiple units that are involved. They just paste theirs below. So what's created is a long-running list of people who are considered verified in this system or as part of their unit.
Neil, we have a question.
Sure.
Just as we're putting in all this data, how are we saving that data on the sheet? Do we have to go to File, Save, or is it automatically saved, or how are we saving that data?
So the nice thing about Google, it's a good question, is that all of the data, any change you make, any letter you type is automatically saved the instant it's done. So you can still go back with these back arrows or forward to redo or undo, but once I type something in here, let's say I type the word web right here, it's now saved, and everybody who's viewing this spreadsheet can see what I've typed. All right.
Neil, is there a way, so say that, you know, if I'm pasting all of my volunteer information in there with all the names, what if someone comes in and, like, pastes over mine? Can I track that? How that happened, or do I just have to monitor that, like, occasionally to see, you know, something's going wrong?
You'd have to monitor that. You know, hopefully you have all of the users trained, people who would be using this tool, to not do that. But, you know, if one way you would notice that is all of a sudden volunteers that you know are in your system are showing up as not verified, then you'd know something was wrong and you could go back here.
Where we would come back to figure that out, really to figure out any issues, right? Because this is the key spreadsheet.
Yeah, this enter data sheet is the key. And let me just show you what this looks like when a volunteer is verified. So if I go into the Make Assignments tab here, what I see is a list of the individuals who filled out the survey here. This is just that same list of people, their first name, their last name, their unit. These are cities that have volunteer units. And the next column is name and zip match with unit roster, question mark. And the tool looks through all of the people that filled out the survey and the zip code that they entered and checks it with that list that you entered here in the enter data sheet and sees if there's a match. And if there is, it turns green and says match found, and if it's not, it turns red and says no match. And then you're able to go through and say, in this column, select volunteer status, whether they've been accepted, denied, or are pending for this particular deployment. Now, if you click accepted, the cell will turn green. If you click pending, it will turn orange, and it actually turns the entire row orange, you can see here, so that anybody using a spreadsheet at any point in time, left or right, will see orange. And if you click denied, it will turn red all the way across. I don't know if, so here we have somebody who's denied, Hey Holla from Allentown. The match was not found, and they've been denied for this deployment. This column in between says license verified, and that's to just point out that this tool does not have the capability to verify medical licenses in and of itself. But as you're going through and maybe you choose to verify licenses before you send someone out, you can click not applicable, license confirmed, there's an issue with the license, or the license is expired. And again, these are drop-down lists you can edit. So let's say you want to add a different option to this list. Well, you'd go into the enter data sheet, you'd find out where that list is coming from, and in this case, that particular list is at the very end, I think. Nope, actually, it's right here, license verified, and right now those are the options, but I could also go in here and type in license is fake. All right, and then I could go here and I would see that now license is fake is an option I can put here. Not that we would want to do that, but just so you can see how that works for the drop-down lists. Okay, finishing up here, we've got, this is the enter data lists. As I'm scrolling these different categories, so departures list is an important one. This is a list of all of the dates and times and locations that a departure is occurring. So again, we're thinking about transporting volunteers from one area to another. Well, from Southeast Pennsylvania on October 14th at 7 a.m., we're going to be transporting a certain number of people. And we're not saying how many buses there may be, you know, or vehicles, but just number of people, total capacity. So in this case, we have a two-person departure. From the Lehigh Valley on the same day at the same time, we have 75 people leaving. All right, and these are departures that we will assign volunteers to as they are going through the assignment process. And again, you can add one at the bottom. So let's say we want to add one from the Lehigh Valley. We click on this cell and a little calendar appears. So we'll have October the 8th, military time leaving at 0800, and we know that we're going to have capacity, or at least we're asking for capacity for 150 people. All right. Now, from this list of departures, this next column, desired number of responders by day, is generated. And so here we have every day that a particular departures are occurring, and we have a list in green where you enter how many people you want deploying total on that given day. And we can just see here that the 8th of October just appeared. So let's say our desired number of responders on that day is 40, and similarly on this one it's 30. And again, those are total number of responders, and those come in later. So this next one, search terms for responder charts, is referring to graphs here, where you can see in this blue sheet at the bottom, graphs that tell you how many responders of a certain type are deploying on a given day. So if I zoom in here, you can see assigned responders by departure date and type. So here we have all the dates that buses or vehicles are leaving, and how many nurses or doctors or non-medical people have been assigned to leave from their home at a rally point on a departure on that particular day. And so we can see that there are 6 non-medical people assigned already to leave on the 14th of October, just likewise 1 doctor and 4 nurses. Also, there's a graph here that says responders assigned compared to need. And this is the total number of responders on that day who are leaving or departing. And this red line is a graph of that number that you just input saying the total number needed. And so you can sort of see where you are in that, in meeting your need. So going back here, again, these numbers here in the desired number of responders are what's generating that red line. Now this chart, the assigned responders by departure date and type, is very changeable. So let's say you don't want to look at nurses, doctors, and non-medical. You want to look at people who can place IVs. You want to look at people who speak French, and you want to look at licensed social workers. Well, you can change that in the enter data. So you find search terms for responder charts. All right, and in this column you have some boxes you would need to fill in. So skill category 1, skill category 2, and skill category 3. In this one, it's the title of the skill. So in this case, it's nurses, doctors, and non-medical. And these 3 form the labels in the key here. So nurses, doctors, non-medical. But recognize how this works. Essentially, what's happening is the tool is searching within a particular column of the Make Assignments sheet. So in the Make Assignments sheet, let's just talk briefly about assignments. So you have, this is a sheet that you might be working in, and you might be assigning responders to leave from particular places on particular days. And I'll get into the mechanics of that in a minute, but it's going to search for who has been assigned, and then it's going to track what their qualifications are. And it's going to look in, we have it over here, it's displayed the qualification of each individual. And so you're looking for a particular term. Let's say you're looking for the word nurse because you want to include nurses and nurse practitioners. Well, in that case, in here, your search word for nurses should be nurse. But you can see how this word might be different than this word. So this might be French speaking, and your search term would be French, for example. All right, any questions about the graphs, the charts? All right, well, let's go back to the Make Assignments sheet, because this is really where all the magic happens. Where were we? We were here where we have the first name, last name, the unit. We've talked about whether the roster has found a match. We've talked about whether the license was verified. And we've talked about selecting a volunteer status, accepted, denied, or pending. As we scroll through, this green section here is what you're going to complete before the responder even leaves their home, okay? Here we have in beige, these are the dates that they've said they're available for and the number of days they would not want to be deployed for more than. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, however many days they say they were willing to be deployed. In these green columns here are where you are able to make assignments. But let's sort of take a step back, because this sheet looks really complicated, and there's a lot of different volunteers from different units here. So you may want to look at only your unit's volunteers. And let's say my unit is Philadelphia. Well, there's a way to do that. You're going to go up here and use a filter view. So this is the filter symbol, but we're going to go next to it and click Create a New Filter View. What a filter view does is it provides you and at your computer, allows you to filter the data based on a certain column. So in this case, we're looking to filter it based on the unit column. But I don't want this to change the view of anybody else working in the spreadsheet, right? So the filter view is essentially my view. So to set this up, I just clicked Create a New Filter View, and this black box appeared around all the data. And I also noticed that there's these little blue arrow boxes on each column, and it's going to let me filter by these different items that appear in that column. But I don't want these boxes up here, because I don't want them to filter based on, say, the header or some of these other things. I only want it of the data, which starts at row 11. So that's pretty easy to do, actually. You go up here, and here you can adjust the range of the filter and the name of the filter. So the name, I'm going to name it Philadelphia Volunteers Example. All right. The range, I want to be the entire spreadsheet from row 11 down. So here I'm going to, instead of A1, I'm going to put A11 and through, let's just make this ZZ2000, right? So this is really includes the entire spreadsheet. Oh, sorry, A11. So now we notice that these blue boxes jumped right down to here. Oh, sorry, actually I'm going to have to put, you want this to be the header row, so this would be 10. And now the little boxes appear on the header row here. So let's go to the unit, and now I'm presented with an example in this little white box of a list of all of the different values that exist in the column. And let's say I only want to see Philadelphia's. I'm going to click Clear, and then all the check marks disappear, and now I can select Philadelphia only and click OK. And now I see only Philadelphia volunteers. Okay. So now let's go through the process of making an assignment. So let's look at Neil Batra, happens to be me. Let's say that the license is confirmed. Let's say that this person is accepted for the deployment. And now we can see that Neil is willing to be deployed from the 14th of October to the 23rd of October, but only for 6 days. All right. We're going to know that this person is from Philadelphia, so home rally point is going to be Southeast Pennsylvania. Now, automatically, the address and contact number that is associated with that rally point appears. The destination, we'll say that the disaster is in Pittsburgh, which is in Allegheny County, so that's where we're going. Again, the address and contact information appear. All right. And scrolling down, we have a departure date, departure time, and a return date and deployment duration. So here's where we're going to use this departures dashboard to aid our decision making, because we want to make sure that we're assigning this person to the right dates and right times, but also to a time on a particular day that actually has vehicles leaving. So we can see that I'm available on the 14th, so let's have my departure date be on the 14th, 2015, 10/14. This is a list of the departures that exist so far from the enter data sheet. Remember, there was a list of departures. And then time, I have to select a time that actually exists leaving from Southeast Pennsylvania on the 14th. Now here, I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I'm going to select Southeast Pennsylvania on the 14th. And okay, so you have this dashboard here, and you need to have it select Southeast Pennsylvania and the correct date. And what appears is a list of the departures that are scheduled to leave from the location you selected on the date you selected. And they're organized here by the departure time, and then they list the maximum capacity for that departure the current number of people assigned to that departure down here, and how many spots are available, and whether the status is available or full. And note that if you do overbook a spot, the number turns negative and it turns red. But so let's go and reapply this filter view that I took off for the moment. So Philadelphia volunteers example, we were looking at Neil Batra here. And so we've decided that he's leaving on the 14th. And so we need to look at leaving from Southeast Pennsylvania on the 14th. I can see that the bus at the departure at 8 a.m. is full. So, but I do see that at 9 a.m. there are 20 available spots, so I'm going to put him leaving at 9 a.m. So I'm going to go to the drop-down list here and select 9 a.m. Now I pick a return date. Well, let's say I don't really pay attention to this, and I pick a date that is after when Neil said he is willing to come back. Let's say October 30th. Well, instantly, the computer, the tool, once it calculates, is going to notice that this date exceeds Neil's availability date. I said the 23rd, and this person selected the 30th. Sorry, Neil said the 23rd, and the person assigning him said the 30th. So that turns red. Similarly, if the date you assign them to leave is before their availability, this cell will also turn red. And notice how it looked and saw that that Neil is only available for 6 days, and this is 17 days. It turns red. But we can change that. We're notified immediately. Let's change this to be the, let's see here, what date? 14 for 6 days. So let's do 14th through the 19th is now 6 days inclusive, and these should turn green momentarily. So now we'll be all set. There we go. So those are the basic assignments that need to take place before a person leaves their home, before a responder leaves their home. So the unit coordinator would go through and do this for all of their units individuals, whether that's 3 people or 300 people, and make those assignments. So what happens then? Well, you may want to send them an email that tells them where to meet and when to meet. And we'll get to that at the end of this webinar, but just so you're aware, that happens by going up to this add-ons and launching this Autocrat sort of add-on, they call it. It's kind of like an app. Now, another app you may want to launch is the mapping one. And so this is where all of the available volunteers in this raw data, you can generate a map of where they live. And the way to do that is make sure that in your entered data sheet here, you have the right information in the mapping ones here, so the right columns. And you're going to go up to add-ons and click the Mapping Sheets add-on and click Start Mapping. Now, depending on your computer, like this one, you may have to sort of give permission for this add-on to access your sheet. It's free. Just click free. It's going to ask for some information about it. Click accept. Again, none of this data is sensitive if you do it right. Not that they're going to share it or anything. And now you have the Mapping Sheets add-on. So let's click Start Mapping. It's going to open this sidebar. And note that you can start this add-on from any of the sheets, and it will display the same map. It doesn't matter which sheet you're in when you start the add-on. Don't touch any of these, but there is, in the Instructions tab, it tells you to make sure which of these are lined up in what particular way. Click Build to build the map. And then what it's doing now is it's mapping through Google Maps all of those zip codes that you had your volunteers provide. And it's categorizing them by the category you want and giving them all different names based on whatever you input in this section of the entered data sheet. Usually this takes a minute. Okay, we got results. So it's just letting me know that there are 4 addresses that it wasn't able to map, and out of 130 or so, that's pretty good. Now I can click View, and it opens a new tab. And I've got a map of all the individuals who filled out this questionnaire and entered their zip code. And you can see that they're color-coded by qualification because that's the category that I wanted to categorize them by. This could also be, you could change this to date available or their unit or something like that. So this happens to be how I decided to categorize it. Yay, Pennsylvania. That's the mapping. Yep.
So this map looks really great and is a really neat tool. How could we share this map with others on our response team? Is there a way to share it or save it and print it out?
So the best way I've found to sort of save this image is to take a screenshot. So that would be on your own computer. You hit print screen or screenshot, whatever your computer, however that works for your computer, and that gives you a snapshot of the image as a part of your entire desktop screen. You can then paste that into an email or onto a document, etc.
Thanks. We were thinking about that same function for saving those graphs you were working with earlier.
Yes. So saving the responder charts here, you could also take a screenshot of this and pass it along to some people.
Great.
All right. So that's mapping for you. But let's say now you're at the phase of the response where you want to you've mobilized the volunteers, you've sent you're standing up rally points, and people are starting to show up at rally points. At the rally point, you probably have a rally point manager, and as people arrive, they're going to want to see a roster of who they should expect to arrive. And so here in tabs is departure rosters. And so here the users are able to select a location, a date, and a time of a departure, and up pops a roster of the people who have been assigned to show up on that particular date and time and place, along with their unit and their cell phone number. I also wanted to point out, you're familiar with this dashboard here. If you want the full list of all the departures and their current status, you can go to this yellow tab, Master List of Departures. You can go to this Master List of Departures, and you can see the list of all the departures and their current status. I've also set it so that any departures that are leaving today are highlighted in yellow. And so none of these happen to be leaving today, but they will highlight in yellow if they are. And so actually we can demonstrate that. So let's change this one to leaving on May 4th. So to do that, we would go into the entered data to the departures list. We'll find the one that's leaving on May 1st, and we're going to change this to leaving on May 4th. And we'll go back to the master list of departures, and now we have that it's highlighted as leaving today. So it catches your eye. But like going back to the rosters, you now got a departures roster, and you can also have next to it the vehicle roster. So we'll get to that in a moment, but know that there's a roster for vehicles and also a roster for a particular work site or a particular shift, all right? But going back to the Make Assignments tab, let's say you're a rally point manager. People are arriving who are supposed to be arriving at your rally point. You're going to find their name in here because you also have access to this Google tool if your rally point has access to the internet. And you can input these people as being checked in, or they didn't show up, or et cetera. And again, this drop-down list you can edit, so make your own options. And then once they are checked in and you assign them to a particular vehicle, you want a roster of who is getting on what vehicle. Let's say the vehicle crashes and people get hurt. You want an accountability of who's on what vehicle. Let's say a vehicle is delayed. You want the same purpose. So in the entered data, you create a list of all of the vehicles. And I think that's down at the end here. Vehicle numbers is what it's called. But you have here a list of all the different vehicles, and you can add to that right in here at the bottom. And the Make Assignment sheet, you maybe are assigning this person to be on Southeastern Pennsylvania Bus 1, this person on Southeastern Pennsylvania Bus 2, depending on what time and day they're leaving. Because remember, there may be multiple vehicles leaving from one place at a departure time. And the way I see this going is the Rally Point manager may not have this laptop up with them, but they may be working off of a clipboard and then go back after the fact once the bus has left and enter, you know, who exactly got on what bus. Great, so Neil has been assigned, he checked in at the Rally Point, he showed up and got on the bus. And one other reason why I've separated this is because you never really know who is going to show up at the Rally Point. You know, we all know that only a certain % of the volunteers are actually going to show up for the departure, and so you want to wait to assign the bus until you know, all right, this person actually came through and showed up at the Rally Point. And similarly, all these other assignments we're about to make, you don't want to do that until you know exactly who is in your pool of volunteers that actually showed up. So that's in yellow. Then we have the blue assignments, where these are sort of the more detailed assignments relating to the disaster area. So Neil now travels across the country and checks in at the reception center. His bus has arrived. And now at the reception center, a series of assignments are made, including the jurisdiction, particular county or city the person is assigned to, the particular residence they'll be staying in, and the work site that they're assigned to, and the role they've been assigned, and things like that. Now, these assignments could happen at the reception center. They could also happen while the volunteer is in transit. So let's say there's a 6-hour drive between the Rally Point and the reception center. Well, the reception center staff can be filling out these assignments once they know a person has checked into the Rally Point, because they know they will be arriving 6 hours later. So jurisdiction, let's say this person is assigned to Erie County, accommodations, Erie Responder Shelter 2, the location will be automatically generated here. The work site is, let's say we're gonna work at Erie Shelter 1 or Erie Shelter 2. Again, the work site location appears, and Neil, we can see his qualifications are he's non-medical, so we're going to put him as line staff. Great, so now that's all recorded. We can keep going into the green section if we want and assign Neil to shifts. So Neil, we can still see his name here, is arriving on the 14th. We recall. So let's say we're going to give him 1 day of spare time because he's getting in on the evening on the 14th. So we're going to have him work the 15th. And we have an option of shifts, day shift. Second one is going to be on the 16th, day shift, et cetera, et cetera.
So Neil, I see, if I can interrupt for a second, I see that you're assigning Neil to all these different shifts, but his role was only chosen one time as line staff. So is that just something that, you know, he should just be line staff the whole time, or is there a way to change that for later shifts?
So that's a good point. The way the tool is set up now is that the role of the responder in the disaster is only selected once. And that's just, I would like to be able to have role in for each shift change, but given just time constraints right now, it's one role for the response. Now, you could change this mid deployment if you wanted. It's just as simple as going in and changing it, and that way on that particular day, the worksite roster, it would show that he's a vaccinator. But right now, it's just you pick the one role that is the most that the person is qualified for.
Right. I think that's fine. And I know that, you know, once they're actually there, you know, if there's a different demand, they may change things around based on the management at the site. So I think that works out well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. So we've assigned Neil through 4 shifts. And that may be all we want to do. This goes up to 10 shifts. If you go more than 10 shifts, there is some additional legwork you have to do in the background in order to make this worksite rosters actually work. So this worksite rosters allows you to pick a worksite, a date, and a shift, and it'll pop out the names of the people and their assigned role for that particular shift. So if you do want to add more than 10 shifts, you will have to do some additional legwork in the background. which is detailed in the Instructions tab at the very bottom. However, just remember that these shifts don't have to be 12 hours. They could be a day. They could be a week is one quote-unquote shift. You know, it sort of depends how you want to organize it. All right. The next thing we should talk about is sort of the highlight of the whole tool, and that is these PDFs. So there's a reason why we've been entering all this information into one row for this particular responder, and that is to generate a personalized PDF for this responder that's automatically emailed to them. Now this is done through an add-on, which is called Autocrat. And so let's go ahead and launch this. And again, we'll have to allow the tool to access our sheet. And now we can launch it. And again, it's going to open a sidebar. And what this does is it merges the information in a particular row with a document in your drive. And so to make this work, we need to have a document that is sort of the template of the PDF summary. So if we go to the Instructions tab, and we scroll down to this particular function, we can see we're going through graphs, we're going through the rosters, and here we are, sending personalized deployment summaries. This is what the summary will look like in their inbox. Deployment summary for their name, it'll include their unit, their deployment dates, and it'll include the rally point that they've been assigned to. Let me zoom in here. Say the rally point with the address and contact information, the departure date and time, and all this information that you've assigned them about their role. This will appear in their inbox. And as we scroll down, we are given a template version of this document. So we click here and open that up. And we're going back to that same old procedure of saving a copy in our drive, right? So here we are. We're going to file, make a copy, and we're going to call it, it's already called their intrastate deployment PDF email template. Click OK. Get rid of the old one, and now in our drive we have it here. So I'm going to drag this into our emergency response folder. So now in our emergency response folder we have the tool, the document, and the questionnaire. And if we look at this document, it looks just like the email they're going to receive, but all the important information has these tags: first name, last name, departure date, and this is where that information goes for that particular responder. So we know that that's there. You can edit this as you wish. You can create new ones as you wish once you sort of realize how this works. Here we are. So what we want to do is select the volunteers that we want to email. And the way we do that is we scroll to the far right here, and we've got a sheet called Master Sheet for Emails. This is a carbon copy, exact replica of the Make Assignments sheet. But all the data, it doesn't have any of those drop-down menus or anything. It's just a mirror image of the data that has been assigned. So you can see that Neil Batra, right here, it has all of my information that I've been assigned, all the way down to my last shift here. What we want to do is do a filter view for the volunteers that we want to send emails to. So while we wait on that a moment, all right, so we can see that there's something a little off here. We don't want these filters here. We're going to do email is the name of the filter. The range, I want it to start at a 3. So editing now our, just wait a moment for that to load. Now these filters are on the correct place. And so let's filter. Let's start by filtering for Philadelphia volunteers only. And let's do another filter, and let's only send the email to Neil Batra. So let's look through first name. We're going to clear all, and we're going to find Neil. All right, looks like we have 2 Neil Batras in here. That's just because I had this in there before. But basically, you want to, and here I'm highlighting the header row. I'm hitting Shift key, and I'm highlighting my name. So the people that you want to send the email to. I'm going to right-click and click copy. All right, all these instructions are in the purple right above here, step by step. Now I'm going to generate a new sheet specifically for my unit's emails by hitting the plus. All right, we're going to change this and say Phila emails is the name of this new blank sheet. And now I'm going to come here to the top cell, right-click, paste special, not just paste, but paste special, and paste the values only. And the reason why I do that is because if I was to go here and just click paste or click any of these other ones, the entire sheet, or not filtered view of this. So all of the individuals in this sheet would have appeared in the Phila emails, not only the Neil Batra that I wanted to send the email to. So now I have a sheet that only has the people I want to send to, and now I get to do my launch of Autocrat. So let's launch Autocrat. And now let's make a new merge job. I'm going to get rid of this one. Remember, we're merging that document, the template document, with this row or these rows of people that you want to send emails to. And so here we can choose our template from our drive. So we select the emergency response folder, and here we are. Here's our template that we want to merge with. Select that. It's going to load it. It's a pretty easy user interface, but you just have to be taken through it once, I think, to really get a handle for it. It's only a few steps.
Yeah, Neil, we were just discussing offline about the idea of creating multiple templates for this, because you might want to do something like an initial assignment of dates and rally points and then later on send out the actual shifts. So do you think that's fairly easy to do?
It is. It is. So what you would do to do that is develop a few different documents for different stages of the response, perhaps an initial one that tells you where to meet at a rally point, the other one that includes assignments like worksite and lodging, and then perhaps one for shifts that you could email out at different points of time.
Yeah, that's great, because we were thinking about, the time crunch of just trying to get people to a rally point and then maybe waiting a bit, making sure that happens first and then moving on the shift in a little bit. So that would be great. Yeah.
You can also develop one for thank you notes at the very end and use the same tool to send out thank you notes to everybody. So I'm naming this merge job practice. It's loading. And now I want to make sure that the sheet that contains the data is set to Phila emails. That's this one behind there. And then I'm going to make sure that the tags in the document are matched with the headers in the sheet, so that first name is matched up with first name as opposed to being matched with last name or unit or license verified or whatever these may be. First name is matched with first name, last name with last name, unit with unit, departure date with departure date, return date, these all look good. Oh, we have a problem here. Rally point location should not have the first name up here. So We want rally point location to be rally point location. Let's see, reception center location. Again, that got mixed up there. Just got to double check these things. Worksite location, I see a pattern. Looks like the locations may have gotten not automatically matched. Accommodations location, responder role, and then shifts look like they matched just fine. So let's save this. And now we can decide, the last step is to actually name the files. So file naming convention. And we have these, every single column is given this sort of $ and then the column name, and we can reference those. So let's say the file naming convention I want to be deployment summary for $ first name, $ last name. I can even do as of $ current date, and that'll actually spit out the current date as well. I want these to be PDFs, and I could just click save and run it, and then what would happen is it would generate this PDF for Neil Batra and save it in my Google folder, my Google Drive. And that is a very easy thing to do. You can then print them out and hand it to the volunteer if they're right in front of you. But you can also email them. And in this case, you would use the column email address. And so you would put in the two addresses, you'd put $ email address. The subject, you might want to put your, or you might want to put deployment summary for $ first name, $ last name, and again, their name will appear. You can put dear first name, FIRST name. Please find attached your deployment summary for the hurricane response, blah, 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 right? Whatever else you want to write in there. And then include the merge document as a PDF file attachment. You can also do advanced settings if you wish, which include conditional merge options, or will only do the merge if the following is true. So I could set only if the departure time equals 0700 and limit it to those folks, or nothing. So in this case, I don't want to use any of those advanced settings since I'm only sending to one person. So I'm going to save the merge. It's important to note that this is a great tool, but it does have some limitations, and I'll get to those in a moment. Here we are, practice has appeared. You always want to preview the merge before you actually run it. So let's preview this, and it's going to show me what roughly it might be a little different in the preview than it will be in the actual email, but you'll at least know whether your data has loaded correctly. For example, if you've used the right template or not. All right, so we have a deployment summary for Neil Batra. His unit is Philadelphia. The dates look correct, October 14th through the 19th. The rally points, okay, we can see that we have a little bit of a problem here, the Southeast Pennsylvania at undefined location. So maybe we want to go back and check that. But we can see that his shift assignments are correct, and that really his lodging, his work site, his jurisdiction, all these assignments are correct. It just looks like the locations themselves didn't come through. So maybe we want to go back and check that. But for the purposes of today, we're going to click Run the Merge. When you click Run the Merge, at the very far end of the spreadsheet, there's going to be 4 new columns that appear. And these allow you to track the status of the merge. And the email address that this is sending to, I believe, is mrc@phila.gov. So we should be able to go in there and check. So it's found one job. And usually this takes a matter of maybe a minute, and look, it's done. All right, so these are links to the Google Doc of the PDF that was created, and it was sent, and all the merges were completed. So let's just check and see if it showed up in my inbox. And here we have from example unit1@gmail.com, the deployment summary, and we can click on the PDF, open it, and we have my deployment summary in my inbox. The other way to see this is if you go into your Google Drive, Google created a new folder called Merge Docs, and in here is the deployment summary that was created, so you can see what all the documents that have been created. It looks like I put $current date, and it really should have been CURR date, so that was my mistake. But if you do that, it actually does spit out the current date. All right, so let's talk briefly, wrap up here, the limitations of this function, Autocrat. Google limits this to sending 100 emails automatic per day per account, all right? So that they do that so that you don't start spamming the whole world with these automated emails. But what that means for us practically is that if you want to send more than 100 emails per day, you need to create a couple accounts. And so you might have your Unit 1 and your Unit 2, different accounts that all have access to this sheet via sharing. And we've tested it. Those can each send 100 emails per day. And so that's sort of the backup plan. A further backup is if you don't want to use the Autocrat tool, you can always go into the Make Assignments folder and generate a filter and filter based on, let's say, departure date and departure time and a particular vehicle or a work site. You can specify exactly who you want and then go over to their email addresses, grab those emails, and put them in your own inbox and send an email to those 20, 15, however many, 50 individuals with specific information you want them to hear. So if the whole mail merge thing is kind of scary or you don't really trust it, you can always do that as a backup, is use this to get specific lists of emails.
Neil, here I think it's worth noting for other listeners that, you know, as you're training your volunteers in this kind of process, that they should trust a variety of emails coming from your unit coordinator, because, you know, they may be familiar with only getting things from the ESAR VIP or only getting things from a certain, you know, work-associated email address. So, you know, just for anybody listening, I think it's a good, you know, training point to say that, you know, they may be coming from these various Gmail addresses in a large emergency.
That's a good point. I think getting people used to the fact that you may have emails from other addresses. You should also note that the account that the email comes from does not have to be a Gmail account. For example, you can create a Google account with a work account as the email address. So, for example, we have mrc@phila.gov, and that is the name that appears up here, and that is the email address that these emails come from and arrive in the person's inbox. So you can play with that and set up, you know, a couple different accounts for your unit and set that to be the email address that these emails come from. If you feel like Gmail might be, I don't know, not as trustworthy in some volunteers' eyes, but it really is. But in case you're worried about that, you can set that to be the case. All right, so we've covered a lot of things today. Remember, it's all in the instructions tab, step by step. So this is, for example, every step that I just talked through about Autocrat and the merging is here. Advanced instructions with the actual formulas and the functions behind the scenes are here if you want to see how it works or edit it or change it. And then, of course, there's our contact information as well if you want to get a hold of us to give feedback. And there's a survey at the very beginning that we ask you fill out to just so we can send you any updates and get feedback on how the tool is working and how it could be improved.
Great. Neil, we have one final thing over here. So, you know, this is more for a a long-term deployment, how would you recommend, or do you have any recommendations for developing it to use for, say, like, if this Saturday we need volunteers just in Philadelphia in our local jurisdiction?
Good question. I think that although this tool
really
was
another webinar.
Yeah, well, although this was designed for this sort of transportation of volunteers and multiple rally points and reception centers, I think you could probably, in a pinch, use this right now for a local jurisdiction. And what you would do is just skip the columns that weren't relevant. So looking through here, unit is still relevant, unit roster is still relevant, availability dates, those would absolutely still be relevant. You know, rally point, maybe that's not as relevant. Reception center could be a proxy for work site if you wanted to. These are all still relevant. Departure dates, and checked in at the work site, that could absolutely be relevant. And you can go in and change this and assign shifts. So I think a lot of it can be applied locally right now. I did want to just note, so you noticed right there, I accidentally took out a piece of this tool. You probably want to go in and protect some of these important cells. And so an easy way to do that is right-click on any cell and click Protect Range. And that will allow you to select certain cells that people can't accidentally overwrite, et cetera. And that's based on who you share it with, so whatever other people you decide to share it with. So that's all for today. Any other questions from Katie?
No, I think that's good, Neil.
Yeah, this is a great tool. Thanks so much for doing the presentation.
Great. All right, take care, folks. Hope you use it well. Bye-bye.